There's a village in southern China you won't find on any tourist map. It's not that it's abandoned or hidden deep within the mountains. No, it's there, just like any other rural town. Rice paddies stretch along its edges. Old tile-roof houses lean toward narrow dirt roads. Elderly women gossip under banyan trees that have been growing for centuries. But no one talks about the man who sleeps standing by the gate. That is, unless you're already there, and by then, it's usually too late. I heard about the village from an old hostel owner in Guangzhou. It was raining outside. He was half drunk, swirling baijiu in a chipped ceramic cup and watching the water pool outside the door. "You like creepy shit, don't you?" he said suddenly, without looking at me. I blinked. "I mean, yeah, folklore, ghost stuff. Why?" He leaned in. "Don't go to Shanpo village." I wasn't even planning to, but now I had to ask. He lit a cigarette with fingers that trembled slightly. "There's a man. He's always standing by the village gate, always asleep, standing straight like a soldier, doesn't move, doesn't breathe loud, just there." "And?" I prompted. "And if you wake him up, the whole village won't wake up the next morning." I laughed, thinking it was a weird ghost story. He didn't. He said someone did it 10 years ago, a backpacker from Europe. He thought it was performance art. Next morning, the market was dead quiet, chickens dead in their cages, dogs stiff like statues, people frozen in their beds, and the man gone. I pressed. "So how did the story get out if everyone in the village died?" He gave me a tired look. "I didn't say they died. I said they didn't wake up." 3 weeks later, I was standing in front of that very gate. And so was he. He looked exactly as described. Mid-50s, gray robe, hat low on his face, standing with his back straight against the wooden gate that marked the boundary between the outside world and Shanpo village. His skin was pale and dry like paper. His mouth hung slightly open, but no breath came out. A local boy passing by whispered something in Mandarin and tugged at my sleeve. "Don't touch him. Don't talk to him. Just go inside. He won't move." That should have been enough, but you know how stories work. You don't fly to China, take 4 buses and a motorcycle through the mountains just to listen to warnings. Inside the village, things seemed off. Not in a haunted house way, but too quiet. People nodded politely, but no one lingered. No one laughed. No music. No cooking smells. No TV. Children played without screaming. Crows sat on rooftops without cawing. That night, I stayed at a homestay run by an elderly woman named Ai Yi. She had milky eyes and spoke softly as if afraid to be overheard. At dinner, I asked, "Who is the man at the gate?" She paused, placing a single steamed bun on my plate. "Gatekeeper," she said simply. "For what?" Her lips trembled. "We don't ask." I pressed further, but she only shook her head. "Every village has a door. Ours is watched. If the watcher wakes, the dream ends." I stayed up that night, staring out the window. The man hadn't moved. Not once. But I could have sworn he was closer than before. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because it was too quiet, though it was. No dogs barking, no insects chirping, not even the distant crackle of old wood settling. The silence in Shanpo was thick, like damp wool pulled over your head. It pressed against your ears until your own breathing sounded wrong. I lay on the thin mattress, staring at the wooden beams above me, and I couldn't stop thinking about him, the man by the gate, his stillness, his cracked lips, his eyes, closed but somehow still watching. Ai Yi had long since blown out the lantern. Her bedroom was just behind a paper-thin divider, but I swear I heard her whispering. Not to me, not even to herself. It was the kind of whisper that sounds like it's answering something. I sat up. My body felt heavy. Not tired heavy, like I was underwater and the air itself didn't want me to move. I forced myself to stand, grabbed my phone for light, and tiptoed toward the window. And there he was, still standing at the gate, still asleep, still watching. Except I had turned the window away from the gate before going to bed. He shouldn't have been in sight. The next morning, I found myself outside the village temple, not by decision, but because my feet led me there. I don't remember walking, I don't remember getting dressed. I only remember waking up with the incense smell stuck in my nose and a coppery taste on my tongue. The temple was ancient, red paint peeling, roof tiles chipped and mossy. Inside, I saw something that stopped me cold. A mural, cracked and faded, showing a figure standing at a gate, eyes closed, arms limp, mouth open. Surrounding him were villagers sleeping, faces serene. Above them floated a black cloud, with thin limbs reaching down like pucket strings. Below it were 4 characters painted in rough black strokes. Meng Bu Gai Xing. The dream must not wake. I showed a photo of it to Ai at lunch. She dropped the bowl she was holding. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Then finally, one whisper. Why would you look there? I just woke up there, I said. I didn't mean to. Ai stood up, trembling, and locked the front door, then the back door, then all the windows. I'll take you to Old Chang. Old Chang was the village's oldest man, or what was left of him. He sat in a wheelchair under a tree near the northern pond. His spine was bent like a hook. His eyes, blind with age, were always open, always staring. He didn't speak first. He just sniffed the air and said, "You're not from here." "No," I said. "I'm a traveler." "Then travel away, fast." I hesitated. "Who is the man at the gate?" He grinned, lips pulled thin, dry teeth exposed. "You saw the mural, didn't you?" I nodded. He laughed, short, wheezing, joyless. "He's not a man," Old Chang said. "He's the gate." That night, Ai refused to speak. She left me a pot of rice and an oil lamp, then disappeared into her room and locked the door from inside. At midnight, I woke up to something pressing on my chest. Not pain, not weight, just presence. I sat up with a gasp, drenched in sweat. Outside, the night was darker than any I'd ever known. But the gate was glowing. I stepped outside, barefoot, heart pounding. The man was still there, standing, sleeping, watching. Only now I could hear it. A whisper, not from him, but from everything around him. The trees, the grass, the stones in the path. Don't wake him. Let the dream keep dreaming. But something deeper inside me, something primal, something wrong, was already reaching out, already wondering, what if I did? I should have left. I should have packed my bag, walked past the gate, and kept walking until the mountains swallowed the village behind me. But when you're inside something cursed, really inside it, logic doesn't work the way it should. It's like being underwater. You know you're drowning, but instead of swimming up, you breathe in deeper. That night, I didn't go back to sleep. I sat by the window, watching the figure by the gate. And I realized something terrifying. He wasn't breathing. Not shallowly, not slowly, not at all. He wasn't asleep. He was paused. When I was a kid, I had a nightmare about a hallway that stretched forever. I could hear whispers all around me, but they never came from the same place twice. I remember waking up in a cold sweat, heart racing, feeling like someone had almost caught me. That's what it felt like now. The air around the gate shimmered like heat waves, even though it was a cold night. The man's face seemed wrong. From a distance, it was human. But now, the closer I looked, the more I noticed things didn't line up. His ears were too low, his fingers too long, his mouth opened a little too wide. And worst of all, the space between his closed eyelids was pulsing, like something was trying to look through. The next morning, I didn't remember falling asleep, but I woke up with dirt under my nails and a sharp ache in my feet. I checked my phone camera roll. There were 5 photos I didn't remember taking. All of them blurry. All of them pointed directly at the man by the gate. And the last one, his eyes were open. I ran downstairs. Ai wasn't there. The front door stood wide open. Outside, the sky was gray, but not with clouds, but with stillness. Birds sat in trees, unmoving. A dog lay on the ground like a rug, eyes open but lifeless. Windmill fans creaked without spinning. A motorcycle engine was on, but the wheels didn't turn. And the people were frozen mid-motion. A man holding a broom, a child with one hand in a rice sack, a woman sipping from a bowl, the soup halfway between mouth and spoon, never falling. Not dead, not alive, just paused. I stumbled back to the gate. He was gone. The spot where he stood was empty. The wood behind him blackened, as if scorched by something not quite fire. I turned and found old Chiang still sitting beneath his tree, still moving, still breathing. "You did it, didn't you?" he rasped. "Did what?" He gave a crooked smile like someone who had been waiting a long time for something awful to come true. "You woke the gate." Then he pointed toward the pond. I followed. The surface was calm, perfectly still. But when I leaned closer, I saw myself, standing at the gate. Eyes closed, mouth slightly open, asleep. I fell back in horror, scrambling away. "No," I whispered. "I'm here. I'm awake. I'm not." But when I looked around again, old Chiang was gone. The trees had shifted. The air felt thicker. And far away, at the new edge of the village, a figure stood motionless. Not the man. Me. The figure in the distance didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. But it was me. Same clothes, same tired stance, same expression of confusion and dread that I was wearing at that very moment. I waved my hand. The figure didn't respond. I shouted. Nothing. And then it shifted, just slightly, like a glitch in a video. The head tilted down a fraction, as if acknowledging something only it could hear. And that's when the whispers began again. They didn't come from outside. They came from inside me. You are not awake. This is not your body. The gate must always have a watcher. I gripped my head. Stop! But the more I screamed, the louder they got. 1,000 voices echoing off the walls of my skull, hissing secrets no human should hear. You stepped through. You reached out. You broke the rule. I ran. Through the rice fields, past the frozen villagers, down the road that led out of Shanpo. The sky above was stuck in a loop, clouds rolling in the same direction, over and over, like a short video clip repeating endlessly. My footsteps made no sound. The trees didn't sway. My shadow never shifted. It was a dream. No, worse. It was a recording, and I was stuck in it. I reached the outskirts. The road that had once taken me into the village now ended in black earth. No tire tracks, no signs, no wind, just silence. And a post, wooden, weathered, sticking out of the ground. Nailed to it was a paper talisman, yellowed, torn. I didn't know what the characters meant, but I touched it anyway, desperate. It crumbled like ash. And behind me, footsteps. Slow, heavy, barefoot. I turned. It was Ai. But something was wrong. Her eyes were too wide. Her head tilted like a doll's. And when she spoke, her voice echoed not in the air, but in my bones. You woke him, she said, smiling, so now he sleeps as you. What does that mean? I asked, backing away. She stepped closer, barefoot on the gravel, not flinching. The gate was never a place. It's a role, a balance. One watcher, one dream, one mistake, and the dream shifts. I shouted at her, demanded to know how to leave, how to undo whatever had happened. She only tilted her head the other way, almost lovingly. Tell me, traveler, why do you think no one in the village wakes up anymore? I swallowed hard. Because someone woke the gate. She nodded. And because she turned her head toward the new figure at the edge of the village, me, still frozen, still staring, stepped through. I felt cold fingers wrap around my wrist. Not hers, not human. I turned, but saw no one. Only a long shadow stretching behind me, even though the sun hadn't moved. The shadow of someone standing, tall, still, watching, like it was measuring me, like it was trying me on. And somewhere far away, in a place beyond sound, something said, "He fits." I ran again, but running felt wrong now, like trying to sprint underwater. Each step dragged like my body was stitched to something invisible beneath the earth. I was fast, but going nowhere. The village didn't shrink behind me. The road didn't lengthen. No matter how far I moved, the sound of my heartbeat stayed exactly the same, and so did the whisper that had nested just behind my ear. He fits. I made it back to the house. Or rather, the house was waiting. Ai was gone. Not dead, not hiding, simply erased. Her tea set still sat on the table. Steam still curled from the spout, but the room didn't smell like jasmine anymore. It smelled like sleep, the kind of sleep where you don't wake up. I opened my backpack. My passport was blank. My journal written in a language I didn't understand. I opened my phone. No signal, no photos, except one. The same photo, repeating in every folder. Me, standing at the gate, eyes closed, mouth slightly open. I stumbled to the mirror and froze, because I didn't recognize the face looking back at me. It was mine, but only technically. The skin was dry, gray at the edges like old newspaper. The eyes were deeper set, too still. The mouth curved at the corners, not into a smile, but into something between exhaustion and surrender. And behind that face, layered like double exposure, I saw his, the original gatekeeper, still watching from within me. A sudden knock at the door made me jump. I turned, heart thudding. No one was there, but something slid beneath the door. A photo. This time, it was of the village. Every house empty, every person standing still. Their shadows stretched toward the gate, all pointing at the same spot. Me. I collapsed into the chair. My mind spun. Time lost meaning. I thought of the old stories, about dream traps, about cursed roles passed from one victim to another, about how evil doesn't always kill you, sometimes it uses you. Somewhere behind the layers of fog and memory, I remembered something Ayi said on my first night. If the watcher wakes, the dream ends. But I hadn't ended the dream. I had become its next guardian. The gate hadn't let me in. It had switched with me. Night fell. I didn't remember falling asleep, but I woke standing at the gate, upright, unmoving, eyes shut. A wind passed, cold, unreal, like a thought brushing against skin, and I heard it again, clearer now. The gate must always have one. The village must never wake. I tried to move. I screamed inside my own head, but my body wouldn't budge. I was locked in place. Not dead, not dreaming. I was the pause, the breath before the world exhales. Somewhere beyond the rice fields, I sensed footsteps. Another traveler, another curious soul chasing stories. And as they neared, my mouth opened slightly, a whisper forming in the back of my throat. Don't wake me. He arrived just before sunset. A young man, probably in his late 20s, foreign, camera slung around his neck, dust on his boots, and curiosity radiating off him like heat. He paused at the edge of the village, panting lightly, looking up at the sign, Shunpo Village. And then he saw me, standing by the gate, still, silent, watching, or so it must have seemed. He tilted his head, squinting, then lifted his camera and snapped a picture. The sound echoed longer than it should have. His name was Michael, an urban explorer, a seeker of forgotten places. I knew, because I could feel his thoughts. Not in words, but impressions, images, memories, flickers of who he was before he got here. I watched him in the way statues must watch people pass, completely still, but deeply aware. He hesitated in front of me. That's weird. You okay, sir? I wanted to scream, to warn him, but my mouth wouldn't move. And yet my throat burned with something ancient, something not mine anymore. Michael circled me once. His camera clicked. Then he did something I'd prayed he wouldn't. He reached out, 2 fingers, lightly, just to touch my shoulder. The air shivered. His hand jerked back like he'd touched an electric wire. He blinked, dazed. What the? Then he turned around and froze, because the village wasn't behind him anymore. Not the way it had been. Now Shunpo village was rearranged. The same houses, the same layout, but the sky above was slightly darker than it had been seconds ago. The trees leaned toward him, and every open window had curtains fluttering, even though there was no wind. Michael stumbled forward, calling out. No answer. Not even silence. Just pause. From deep inside the village, a figure emerged, an old woman. Ai. At least, that's who she used to be. Now she was more whisper than person. Her steps made no sound. Her eyes were too bright, as if glowing faintly from within. Michael waved. Hey, can you tell me where I am? There was a guy at the gate. He didn't move. Her lips parted. Not in a smile, not in a warning, but in a sentence that sounded like it was being spoken inside his skull. The gate always needs someone. I wanted to scream louder, shake my head, run, but I stood there, locked, watching the cycle begin again. And Michael? He looked back at me one last time. His face shifted. For a second, just one horrible second, he and I recognized each other. The way you recognize your own reflection when it's not quite right. Then he stepped forward, and I faded. I didn't vanish. I sank into memory, into shadow, into the place where all the former gatekeepers go when they've been replaced. Somewhere deep, I wondered, had I ever really left this place? Or was I just the echo of the one before me? Somewhere in Shanpo, Michael sits at a dinner table, a bowl of rice untouched, eyes scanning the empty room. Whispers around him, faint, familiar, wrong. And outside, by the gate, he stands, upright, eyes closed, mouth slightly open, waiting. Michael didn't remember falling asleep, but he woke up in a bed that wasn't his. The sheets smelled faintly of smoke and something older. Old wood, wet stone, maybe dust from centuries ago. The walls were made of bamboo and faded red paint. A single candle had melted into a pool of wax beside his pillow, as if someone had been watching over him all night. Except there was no one. Just silence and a low hum, barely audible, almost like breathing. Except it wasn't coming from him. He got up, dizzy. His shoes were neatly placed at the foot of the bed. His backpack was already opened. Camera cleaned. Memory card? Gone. His phone was fully charged, but when he turned it on, the date was wrong. January 3rd, 1904. He tried to change it. The screen flickered, and then displayed only one word. Welcome back, Michael. He blinked, startled. He hadn't told anyone his name. Not IE, not the man at the gate. No one. So how? He stepped outside, and stopped cold, because the village was already moving for him. A child darted across the road, barefoot, laughing. A vendor lifted a basket of herbs and waved at him. An old man with no eyes sat beside a fish pond and muttered, "He's come again." It was like a stage play that had started 5 minutes before he arrived. He walked down the path, trying to find the gate, but it was gone. He spun around, no trace. The road that had led him to Shanpo now led into more village, more alleys, more red lanterns, more doors that opened before he knocked. He began sweating. "Nope, no, I'm not staying. This is off." But no matter which road he took, every path bent back inward, as if the village itself didn't want him to leave, as if it had waited for him. By the 4th hour, Michael sat on the stone steps of the temple, exhausted. A cat walked past him, black, silent, tail curved unnaturally like a question mark. It stopped, stared at him with eyes too human, and then it spoke. Not out loud, not even telepathically, but deep inside his memory. It asked, "Why do you think you were drawn here?" Michael stood up. "I wasn't. I just take photos. The temple bell rang. But there was no bell. Only a sound, hollow, echoing across time, and the whispers returned. They weren't whispers anymore. They were names. His name. Over and over. Michael, Michael, Michael. Chanted by children, whispered by walls, echoed in the splash of the pond and the flicker of a lantern. He covered his ears. "Stop!" But the more he ran, the more the village changed. The red lanterns turned black. The windows blinked like eyes. And the sky above shimmered with a second moon, one that wasn't there before. Then he saw it. Himself. Standing at the gate again. But this time, the gate wasn't physical. It was an arch of shadows at the center of the village square. And his reflection stood within it, motionless, mouth open, eyes closed. He approached, shaking. "I'm not supposed to be here." But his reflection opened his mouth and spoke with his voice. "You were never anywhere else." Michael backed away. But the figure inside the gate, his reflection, his duplicate, his fate, took one step forward. They weren't supposed to move. The stories never said they moved, but this one did. And as it moved, the world around Michael flickered, like a reel of film stuttering, like a dream trying to overwrite itself. He turned and ran, back toward the alleys, back toward the houses that had greeted him too warmly. But the village had changed again. Now every door was open, every window was dark, and the villagers stood in rows, completely still, facing the center. All of them facing him. Their faces were blank, no eyes, no mouths, just skin stretched over where features should have been. But they spoke anyway. Whispers leaking from the seams of their necks. "He fits. He has forgotten enough. He's ready to replace." Michael stumbled into Ai's house, but it wasn't a house anymore. It was empty, a box of silence, and in the center of the room, a mirror. An old, spotted bronze plate nailed to the wall. He walked to it, drawn without knowing why, and stared. At first, he saw himself. Then, slowly, his face began to change. His mouth lengthened, his eyes sunk deeper into shadow, and from behind his reflection, someone else leaned forward. A face layered behind his own, one he didn't know, but it was crying. A tear rolled down his own cheek in the reflection, even though he wasn't crying. And the voice came, a broken whisper, like wind scraping stone. He never left. Michael fell back. His heart thundered. His thoughts splintered. Who was that in the mirror? He scrambled for his phone, but it no longer showed his face in the selfie camera. It showed the village from above. Every person frozen mid-step, every shadow pointing inward, every voice echoing the same name, Michael. And then silence. Everything stopped, even his breathing, even the candlelight, even the dust in the air. It was as if time itself took a breath and held it. And in that stillness, he heard one final whisper, "Take your place." The door behind him creaked. He turned around slowly. The villagers stood there, hundreds now, all blank-faced, all pointing to the center of the village where the arch of shadow still waited, where his place had already been shaped, not for escape, but for exchange. And Michael, trembling, took one step forward. His limbs not his own, his mind not fully his anymore. And in the puddle outside, he saw his reflection again, smiling, waiting, already standing. Michael woke to the smell of rice porridge and burning incense. The room was familiar. The bed, the candle, the walls made of old timber and red clay. A soft breeze fluttered the curtains. He stretched. He didn't remember falling asleep, didn't remember arriving in the village either. But it didn't seem strange. After all, he lived here, didn't he? He stepped outside into the morning sun. The villagers greeted him like always, nodding, smiling gently, eyes never quite meeting his. The children played near the pond. The cats sat on tiled roofs, unmoving, but watching. And at the edge of the village, he knew, without needing to look, that someone stood at the gate now. Not him. That part was over. That part was someone else's. As he walked through the market, a woman waved him over. Ayi. Her eyes were milky and kind. "Michael," she said, "you should eat something before your shift." He tilted his head. "Shift?" She nodded. "The watcher rests now. You help keep the rhythm." He didn't understand the words, but he nodded anyway. He sat by the fire that evening with the elders, listened to their stories, laughed when they laughed, sipped tea he couldn't taste. And when he went home, the mirror showed only one face now, his. No one behind it, no tear, no shadow, just him. He smiled. But that night, something pulled him from sleep. A noise. No, not quite. A thought. A memory. He was standing in front of a tall, arched gate made of shadows. It whispered, "You came here with a camera. You wanted to document forgotten places. You were warned." He shook his head. "No, I was born here." But the voice insisted, "You were not." And then the dream cracked. A flood of images hit him like a wave. Photos, mountains, a train station, the man standing at the gate, a touch on the shoulder, a whisper, a flash, and then nothing. Then here. He woke in a cold sweat, sitting upright in bed, breathing hard. Something was different. The candle beside his bed had melted backward. The shadows on the wall pulsed like they were breathing. And then he heard it, a voice from the mirror. Low, familiar, like his own voice, older, more tired. "They erased you, but not all of you." He crept toward the mirror, and in it his reflection flickered. Not entirely him, just for a second the face of another, a man he didn't know or couldn't remember knowing. The voice came again. "You were me. I was before you. We are the same." Michael shook. "What is this place?" The mirror replied, "A dream kept alive by silence, a village suspended between breath and memory, and the gate must always stand." He turned toward the window. Outside, the figure at the gate had vanished, and all the villagers now faced his house, unmoving, staring, smiling. "I want to leave," the mirror pulsed. "Then you must wake the one who came after you." Michael stood by the window, staring out at the villagers. They didn't blink. They didn't breathe. They simply waited. Not for him to move, but for him to accept. Because that's what always happened, wasn't it? You forget. You blend in. You become part of the pause. But something inside him, some leftover sliver of the man with the camera, the outsider, the one who once ran, was still screaming. He whispered to the mirror, "Who came after me?" The reflection didn't answer. It only twitched. Its mouth moved wrong, like someone else was trying to control it. "They're already here," the mirror finally whispered. "Standing, dreaming, waiting." Michael stepped out into the village square. The air was heavy, not hot, just pressurized, like sound itself was afraid to move. He passed the villagers, and none turned their heads, but he knew they were following. With ears that didn't need to turn, with eyes that no longer needed to open. He made his way to the gate, and there, just as he feared, stood another, a new figure, young, confused, dressed like a traveler, backpack on, head tilted slightly, standing too still, mouth slightly open, not fully taken yet. The replacement, the next link. Michael approached slowly. He felt it then, the same weight the others must have felt before the first mistake. The unbearable truth. To leave, someone else must stay. To wake, someone else must sleep. He reached out a hand, hesitated. The air around the new figure shimmered, resisting him, fighting him. "Wake up," Michael whispered, "please." No response. He stepped closer, now face to face. He raised his voice. "You don't belong here." The sky cracked. A soundless flash tore across the horizon like lightning caught in a scream. And the figure blinked, just once. Then, all at once, the village began to move. Not alive, just glitching. Children jerked forward, then snapped back. Doors slammed open and shut in a loop. Cats floated above rooftops without legs. And every voice in the village rose in one unified, vibrating chant. "No one leaves. The dream cannot be empty. Balance must be kept." Michael turned. The mirror from his home now floated above the village square, spinning slowly, showing fragments of faces, his, the old gatekeepers, the new figures, all distorted, all whispering through each other. Then the mirror spoke in all their voices combined. "You cannot save someone and leave yourself behind." He looked back at the new gatekeeper. The boy's eyes were open now and filled with terror. Michael took a breath and made the choice no one had made before. He grabbed the boy's shoulders and shoved him backward, away from the gate, off the path. The figure collapsed, gasping, and Michael stepped in, where he had stood before, where the others had stood, where the dream always needed someone to be. And as his feet locked to the ground, as his mouth opened, as the village grew quiet once more, he whispered with the last of his will, "Run." The new traveler looked up, trembling, confused, but he ran. And Michael smiled, just barely, before his face froze again. The wind stopped, the sky dimmed, and Shanpo returned to stillness. At the edge of the village, the boy turned and saw a man standing by the gate, motionless, mouth slightly open, eyes closed. And something in his soul ached, like he had just been given something he didn't deserve. Far behind him, the village whispered again, not to him, but to the next traveler. "The gate sleeps. Let the dream remain until someone else remembers."